Welcome to Power BI Nibble number 3, providing a refresh time. I'm Alan Farner, and I am quite fond of Power BI. Use my advice at your own risk. Seriously, don't sue me. If where you're watching this, it gives you an opportunity to press say, a like or subscribe or notification button, please do so. It will make a kitten purr somewhere. You'll be able to find these videos on youtube.dataguy.me, so just tack on YouTube to that, and they're all at the Nibbles Wiki, which is wrong way. There we go, Nibbles Wiki, which literally is nibbles.wiki. For this specific Power BI Nibble, I'm going to go for the first time, turn on dataguy.it/pbinibble3, dataguy.it/pbinibble3, and all the nibbles will have that in the future. Are you ready? Let's go ahead and learn together. Switch things around here. Just a second. That there. Hit that there button. And I think we're there. Can you see it? Oh, they're pending changes. What did I do? Oh, I know I did. Let's go ahead and apply those changes. Don't worry about that. Okay, so this you will be able to get to this. May even embed in the page. I'll also put some code on the page that's important. But they're kind of two steps. How do you get the refresh time? And then how do you display it? And we'll talk about why the latter one actually is why most of this is here. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and open up how you get the data. And I've gotten the data twice because I want to give two options that you can see on the main page there. Let's go with the one with the last refresh with the offset parameter. This is how I did it originally, and what's nice about this is it's not dependent on any other service. So you do it this way, you're fine. It does have one detraction that we'll talk about in just a minute. But if you look at the code, because that's probably, I think I copied this from somewhere before. Actually, I didn't do that with this one. I'll put a tab in there, like indenting. They already had this, right? So you get your source. Step one is get the time, and you can see they're doing it with UTC. You might say to yourself, I want to use local time because there's a local time, local now or something like that you can use. I recommend you use UTC because UTC is always UTC. It doesn't change and stuff. It is a set value and then change it to your local time. Now you may watch this and say, well, Alan, if I just use local time to begin with, we wouldn't have had certain parameters. In my situation, I work in Colorado. The majority of my company is in California. We have people in Hawaii. The company I work for, I shouldn't say my company. Some in Georgia. So you can see that may work well if everybody's in one spot, but you're going to publish this, other people are going to look at it, and they're not in your time zone. So you put your local time up there. That might not be good. So go with UTC and then figure out how you provide a reliable value when you tell people the refresh time. I'll show you quickly how to do it. So this one, basically what I do is, I actually don't want to discard, I'll keep that indent. So I'm not sure where it's started, but you can change the type. You can see this is changing it to DateTime Zone. Then I added this one, and this is the one where I do the offset. So I have a variable over here that says it's -7 hours off. So I'm setting this, probably right now it'd be mountain time, mine, -7 hours off. The gotcha with this approach, the biggest gotcha with this, is that you end up having to change it. You got to list your reports, keep track of your reports that you've done this for, and you've got to change it whenever daylight savings switches. If you're in a spot, if you want to set it to a time zone that never changes, woohoo, that works well. But if you're in a spot like we are in the U.S. right now, where most of the U.S., where things change, then got to remember it may be -7 now, but another part of the year it's, see it spring forward, fall back, right? Another part of the year would be 8 hours, I think -8 hours. And then, go ahead and do this. Now notice I explain what I'm doing in steps, except for change type. I'm lazy. I don't say which fields I've changed and stuff like that. And that works pretty well. You will notice, by the way, that the TZ offset is loaded, right? I don't need to load that one. Well, actually, I take it back. No, I don't need to load that one. Is there another one that needs to be? It's interesting. Okay, give me 1 second here, folks. Um, The only reason enable load was turned on for the TZ offset parameters, so it could be included in the multi. Yes, that's right. Okay. So the only reason that I did do that, I don't need it to do this work here. Okay. But to show it in this card, and that's why I wanted to mention it, to show it in this card, I had to put it in the data model. So normally with this one here, do not do enable load. There's no reason to, and it comes up your list of fields and tables. It shows up here. So normally you're not going to have to tell people that you have -7 unless you need to show it or you need to use it for a calculation in the data model. You don't have to load it. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's step number one. The other one that I did, and this code will be up there. I'll put the code for both up there. The other one that I did, let's go with offset. This one's the API query. You'll notice this one only has the one time, because what I'm going to do with that one, I'm going to manipulate it in the data model. And I'll show you how we do that. Now, let's say you say, Alan, I really don't want to copy and paste. I'd like to use Power BI directly to do this. Now, you will have to do at least one little bit of code. So let's say you do new source. You're going to do blank, okay? Say new source. You're going to say blank query. And what you're then going to do is open it up in the advanced editor. And your source is basically going to be date, oh, don't want quotes on that, date, time, and so fixed, as I understand it, fixed, if you use fixed, as soon as you use it once, it's fixed to that time. So if you use it 100 times in different queries and stuff, it's going to set it once, it's going to keep the time. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do zone, what are my UTC? See the UTC now? And then, put parentheses on it. And what that'll do right there is notice it creates an entry. It's not very useful. It's not even a table. But notice now I can go up here and I can say to table, right? Now I have a table. The only gotcha I have left is, see this here? See that right there? Got to make that a date, time zone. Okay? And there you go. You have a date, time zone that is when this is refreshed. If I hit refresh on it, will say set the time to the new refresh time. So that's how you can do it. Okay, so now I'm going to delete this query because I really don't want to leave it in there. I just wanted to show you that, how you would do it yourself. I'm going to move this over here for a minute. And so what you see on here is see this timezonedb. Let's talk about this, and there's a how-to post. And when you go to this, I'll put the links in the description and on the wiki page and stuff too. I got the idea for how to do this from this how-to post, and it uses the timezonedb. And basically what I did is I did a web call to a URL. Now notice I've broken the URL into its pieces. This is the URL for a list call. This is a URL for a single call. This is the API key that I'm using. Don't use it. I'm going to have to figure out how to mask this. And then what happens is I've got two. There's one where I load the list, and I'm not using this. I just brought it in to see how it is. That's going to be an interesting one to edit, to keep masking the key. You can create your own login for free, and if you're not using it for commercial uses, you can use it all you want. But basically, what you do is you do a get web, see a new source. This is web. And you put the URL in there, and they have great documentation on there on how you can pull it. The only quirk with the list is the default query. Let's bring this up real quick here. The default query doesn't have all the fields. Can I bring down? That's not going to do it. Let's do it this way. Manage parameters. The default query doesn't have all of them, so instead of just going with the default, I had to list the ones I want because I wanted to have they've got a flag that says whether DST is on or not. I kind of thought that was cool. And then so that's how I created this one. Let's come over here. Let's refresh. So that's how I got the list. Here we go. You can see that the source, drop this down a little bit here, that the source is a call to the main query plus my API key. And that's what I do it. If you have multiple values, it can get more complex. But if you only have one value, then put the whole URL and then put the last thing that you've got to provide on the end. It automatically, when I gave it the original URL, and I do say in my, where's it going to be, on which side? That's going to be that side up there. I'll put a card on here. And I talked about in the parameters in the Nibble number 1 that I usually just connect and then I convert things to parameters, and that's what I did here. So when I pointed it to a JSON source on the web, it did all this stuff through here. Might have even done some of the change types. Even if it does, go ahead and check the message. I don't have any messages, so I left them as they are. But you can see there's this neat database now of all the different time zones. If you read the link, this how-to post here, he'll explain what he used it for, and there might be some uses. I don't need it for my use. Instead, I use the single time zone query. And with that one, what you do is I had to do the single call URL, which had everything until the time zone that I wanted, and I wanted America, Los Angeles. And then I tacked on the key, and then I gave my API key. Okay? So, net effect is this. I end up with a single row. Let's go to the data model. Let's close this. Yes. Changes. Give it a second. Give it another second. That's not Power BI, that's my computer. So what I end up with this one is a single row, right? And then I told you that I created two. The first one was using the offset parameter. The second one was just the time here. And then if you look at this field, you can see that I took this field here, created a calculate field, and I said, hey, do me a favor, take this last refresh, max, because you've got to have some kind of aggregate, right? It's some way to find, you've got to, well, aggregate or select a record. I could have probably done something like this too first. As a matter of fact, I might leave it to this, because technically mask has to do, if you had a max has to do a table scan, right? So basically I'm going to get the first entry to say, what is the offset? What is the offset? It is in seconds, so I've got to divide by 86,400 in order to get how many days, and that's what you have to add to this. And let's see if I end up with the same thing, 951, 951, right? So basically you got to get the value from that other field. And so you can see the two options. Let's go back to this. So you can see the two options. You can go ahead and say, I'm going to get the refresh time. That's uncommon. And then with one option, you can say, I'm going to use my, oh, actually, I didn't even show you that, didn't I? Let's bring this back up here. Like I said, it's going to be fun to edit to hide my key. In the one where I use the last, no, we want the offset parameter. This is how I added it, and I'll have the code there. But if you look at the field there, I'm using DateTime Zone, switch zone, and then I'm taking the original one that's in UTC, and I am switching it to the -7, which would be Pacific. I gotta admit, I am quite fond of Power BI, but I'm not necessarily impressed with the level of time zone support in it. Even one of the nice things about using the databases. See this PDT? Maybe it's on me, and you guys can put in the comments whether there's a better way to do it and stuff. But I can't think of any way with Power BI to, unless I hardwire, to have it tell me PDT. That this is done in Pacific time, daylight time, right? Daylight time. So, I mean, that's basically it. I'll have the code there and stuff. I'm not sure how long I've been going. I should check. Tell me on the recording. Yeah, it's been going 15 minutes, so we've gone long enough. Some things, let's go ahead and talk about something to make sure I don't miss it. Don't use refresh time unless it really is the best thing. And there are only two reasons. Number one, you have kind of real-time data source, right? It's always being adjusted. Then your refresh time makes sense. Number two is it's your only option. And with it's your only option, because you can't get it from anywhere else that's more meaningful, sometimes no data is better than bad data. Don't confuse people. It's part of the reason, like in Power BI, when you publish, they actually have a refresh time up in the title bar, and I hate it because people look at that and think that's the refresh time. Well, it may be meaningless. If you have data and it's the 15th of the month and it's only current once a month as the previous month, the 15th refresh time is meaningless. What's the most recent record? There's a type of data we have called RPM, and I can tell what the last day that I have a full day's worth of records for. That's the time, that's the date I give them. And by the way, that goes into only be as specific as makes sense. If you have a full day, then say this is refreshed through that day. Don't go that date and time, because what are you going to do? Say midnight? Doesn't make sense. Why put midnight on every kind of label? Even when it does make sense to give more granular time, don't ever put seconds. Don't you do that. Don't put seconds. It's a waste of space, and it's meaningless again. Is it accurate? What happens is what you write for precision implies precision of the data. Don't make things look more precise than they truly are. Looking at the page here that you can see, don't display seconds. There you go. The only reason I did the enable load is because I wanted to show it right here. The multi-row cards. I want to show them the multi-row card. For some reason, if I kept pulling this, it started going horizontal versus vertical, so that's why the cards don't look as good as I wish. Even if I shrunk them, it didn't matter. As I showed you, using the time zone API method, I did the date math in the data model. Notice this one here. This is important. Code in a way that doesn't depend on a specific time zone provider. What that means is if you do something where if timezonedb shuts down, they're responsive, I've chatted with them, I think it'll be great, but I'm pointing out they might decide at some point it's not worth it anymore to keep doing it. So they shut down and now you're hosed, right? What are you going to do now? So just think about those things. And that might mean that you use more generic field names, or you plan, if you take a new service, to use their field names because you think they're perfectly fine. Just be prepared, because especially if you start using a free service, it could go away. In their case, they do charge for commercial, so hopefully they're making a ton of money. Using the time zone offset parameter has the time zone adjustment in the query, and you saw that. Very important. This page is too busy. I got too much stuff on here. Okay, but I'm just trying to show you how it is. But don't emulate that part of this example. Okay. As I mentioned, timezonedb, they're wonderful people. Provide that, and like I said, they're responsive. You can see that get credit for where I got this. And then finally, this is just a quick list I figured I'd throw in here of what I pulled from the API call that did all the time zones. And if it's green, it means they're in daylight savings. So kind of neat, huh? Okay, as I mentioned early on, if there's some button you can press like, or maybe subscribe, or notifications, please do so. Make sure you go check out the actual text around this one, since it'll have code and stuff. That is going to be at dataguide.it/PBI-Nibble3, and the number 3, by the way. What else? Oh, comments. What do you think? Probably toned down a bit long. Sorry. You know, it's me. You don't have to watch. Don't subscribe then. You'll make the cat kitten stop purring though. But please put comments. Maybe you know a better way. Maybe you have a question. Whatever. I'm glad. Yeah, this is better. Whatever. I don't mean it that way. Not like a teenage kid. kit. I'm very interested in your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and please come back again for another PBI Nibble, Power BI Nibble. Bye.